Чеснок. Зачем мне друзей заводить, если я мужчина? То есть клиентов, я понимаю, да? То есть для работы имеется в виду, да, соратников и клиентов, да. Подчиненных, да. Потому что, ну да. Наверное, да. Ну да. Общение это жизнь, там, ну, пожалуйста. Общайся, вот он, да. Не против, просто у меня такая. У меня даже, ну, наверное. Ну да, ты понимаешь, как бы в теории вот так. Все соратники тут. Ну, скорее всего, так по жизни есть. Да, это зря прожитое, скорее всего. Да. Но все равно никуда, ну и чё? Ну тогда, наверное, понимаю. Да. Ну. Деньги делают, идеи. Блин, насколько интересно. Да. Ну он про себя так же, да он то же самое говорит, потому что, да, делает. Да. Чё это такое? Как ни странно, это, конечно, грубо очень звучит, но тем не менее. Для себя, да.
Please use the Google form linked in the event description to submit your questions. Please allow me to introduce our distinguished guests for today's discussion. Senator Mark Warner was elected as the U.S. Senator from Virginia in November 2008 and re-elected to a third term in November 2020. He serves on the Senate Finance, Banking, Budget, and Rules Committees, as well as the Select Committee on Intelligence, where he is the chairman. From 2002 to 2006, he served as governor of Virginia. The first in his family to graduate from college, Mark Warner spent 20 years as a successful technology and business leader in Virginia before entering public office. An early investor in the cellular telephone business, he co-founded the company that became Nextel and invested in hundreds of startup companies that created tens of thousands of jobs. Janet Napolitano is a professor of public policy at the Goldman School and directs the Center for Security and Politics at UC Berkeley. Previously, Janet served as the 20th president of the University of California and formerly as Secretary of Homeland Security under President Obama. She is a former two-term governor of Arizona, a former Attorney General of Arizona, and a former U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona.
Примерно себя, понимаешь? Количество детей, понимает он, да. Ну, про это и говорил.
Professor Napolitano, I am pleased to turn this conversation over to you.
Well, thanks, Professor Sargent, and good afternoon, Senator Warner. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you, Madam Secretary.
I hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and I know that you all have a very busy schedule over the next few weeks, so we really appreciate you taking this time to be with us and share with us some of your thoughts about new technologies, emergent technologies, cybersecurity, but other issues as well. So let's just dive in if we can. And what do you view as the key emergent technologies that the United States needs to be preparing for? Is it AI, quantum computing, anything else? What are your thoughts there?
Well, Janet, one, it's great to see you. It's a great opportunity. I appreciate this opportunity, and for Professor Sargent, thank you for the introduction. As you know, but the audience doesn't know, I was fortunate enough to get involved in kind of an emerging technology back in the early 80s, the beginning of the wireless industry. I just recently, literally just an hour ago, finished a Zoom with all of my interns, and to see the looks on their faces when cell phone technology, I said, was a cutting edge emerging technology in the early 80s, and they were kind of like baffled by that because it seems so old school at this point. So I'm not sure I can fully answer that question of what are the emerging technologies. I know from the intelligence standpoint, we look at artificial intelligence, we're looking at quantum computing, we're looking at hypersonics, we're looking at supply chain issues around things like semiconductor chips, which is both legacy chips and kind of cutting edge next generation. But I think about last week our committee, or 2 weeks ago, our committee had a fascinating brief on what has taken place in both biotech and bioengineering. And there was a great analogy made, actually by a professor from Stanford and a startup, not so much startup company in life sciences that's done quite well, and making the analogy that biotech and bioengineering are the equivalent, where we are now is the equivalent of 1975. And we think back to ones and zeros in 1975, and there was a lot of
So can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
How do you deal with the memory problem with pupils? Because, the scientists many years ago, I think before you were born, I saw in the New York Times an article about musicians and memory. And they did a survey among the greatest musicians alive, and they found out that a fear of memory slips constitutes 80% of nervousness.
Yeah, it's really true. Yeah, it's really true.
So while you were still sleeping, I was speaking with Alice. And she was talking about, she doesn't have perfect pitch, but she has good relative pitch.
Yeah.
And so I told her that I was going to discuss this with you and explode onto you a shocking realization that occurred to me when I was 90 years old.
Okay.
Here, see if you agree with this. You have perfect pitch, don't you?
Yeah.
Of course. So you memorize your music, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, do you memorize the left hand separately sometimes?
It depends on the complexity of the piece.
Yes. But you do your backup work of preparing?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, do you agree with what I'm about to say?
Yes.
Here's what I'm about to say. when you play from memory, when you're performing, you're not playing from memory at all. You're performing with your ear.
Completely agree.
Is that correct?
It is correct.
Now,
Yeah, it is.
do you realize what an amazing statement that is? Because I don't play with my ear. I mean, I didn't used to,
Right.
because I don't have perfect pitch. So I discovered that if I would take my index finger, see my index finger? Can you see it on the screen?
Not really. A little bit higher.
Can you see it?
Closer to your face. Closer to. Yes, perfect.
You see the index finger?
Yes. Yes.
If I take my index finger and play the right hand of any piece that I know perfectly from memory, I can't play it. My ear doesn't know what the intervals are. And I have all my pupils, they are shocked out of their senses that they can't play the Star-Spangled Banner with the index finger. They don't know, they can sing it,
Right.
but they don't know what the intervals are with their ear. My pupils are not using their ear. Music is a language that comes to us through our ears, and we don't use it unless we have perfect pitch or relative pitch. So I told Alice, here's my conclusion. Well and good, you don't have perfect pitch. Well, if you don't do something to help your relative pitch, you must never, never, never perform from memory. The strain on the nervous system is going to ruin you.
Yes.
So this is what I do for all of my pupils. Here's the piece that they're playing perfectly from memory. I'm teaching them that they're not using their ear, they're just going on their automatic pilot. They're going to break down any moment. Take the index finger of your left hand and play me the melody. Just the melody.
Okay.
Whatever the melody is. So let's say they're going to do the G minor ballade.
Okay.
Okay, well, why don't you play this? Right? Take this. No, not you. No, you're going to do it because you have perfect pitch. So when they do it, they're going to do this. They're going to hunt and peck.
Yeah.
And now, if they do it 15 minutes every day, a different piece every day, or folk songs, any piece, they start to develop their relative pitch.
This is so,
Then they can play from memory.
this is so interesting because I think this solves a lot of the the despair.
Ну смотри, что на самом деле происходит? Они все учат не одно и то же, понимаешь? Они просто понимают. Ну, буквально от этого деньги зависят, то есть как бы, да, карьера.
It really is the most nerve-wracking thing on the stage.
80%
Не знаю,
of
не
nervousness.
знаю. Это, ну, смотри
Okay,
сам.
so now
Не смотри.
I have persuaded at NYU when I was on the faculty there, you must
Ну, наверное, в каком-то
allow
это нормально. Только,
the
понимаешь,
teachers to
если ты
decide.
уже что-то делаешь, и у тебя уже есть еда, если ты уже летаешь, тебе незачем растить тройные крылья тогда, понимаешь? Только в эволюции может по-другому произойти, то есть послезавтра, да, понимаете. Ну да, это или вообще по-другому, или вообще вид просто расщепится на тех, кто умеет двойные крылья, а потом тройные, или на тех, кто, да, понимает, и на тех, кто хорошо смотрит, и на тех, кто хорошо там что-нибудь делает, да, понимает, на тех, кто работает ногами, например, до тех, кто плавает вообще просто, птица, она ушла, и у нее это плавники стали, например. К примеру тебе говорю, вот, да, то есть расщепились просто виды, и все, ну как бы, ну ни одного не будет твоих потомков, вот. Понимает, как-то, да, понимает. Я да, вообще. На политиков полагайтесь, конечно, да, и общество, да. Да, главное хорошо жить. Ля-ля-ля, не-не, что там, да. Потом мировая, все такие, а что такая мировая война-то? А так все ничего, да, понимают, да. Короче, представляешь себе, столько можно сделать. Короче, можно работать, жить, короче, надо, понимаешь? Понимает он. Ну, а ты что будешь делать? Что будешь пахать? Да, реально, да, понимаю. Потом ты же меня проклянешь, что эти, это, да, понимаешь? Да, понимаю. Так вот и сегодня, да, просто, да, ну, да. Нет, ничего страшного нет, это тоже бояться не надо, это тоже все время, конечно, Павлов. Да, понимаю. Да, Санта принес нам Санту. Да, понял уже, что да. Да. Вообще просто же, представляешь? Да. Вообще, да. Да, вот как-то так, все нужно добрать там. Работать надо же, ну да. Ладно. Да, мужики что-то еще говорят.
Where I think there could actually be a reemergence of American leadership in combination with our allies.
Yeah, Senator, to what extent does the ability of Congress to be agile and nimble and proactive as opposed to reactive?
So can I ask you a question? How do you deal with the memory problem with pupils? Because, you know, the scientists many years ago, I think before you were born, I saw in the New York Times an article about musicians and memory. And they did a survey. Was never. Okay, so now I have persuaded at NYU when I was on the faculty there, you must allow the teachers to decide whether the pupils who play their juries are going to play from memory or with their music. You must allow that to happen because you're going to miss the best performances. I have had at that time some of the most gifted students who did not have perfect pitch, who kept breaking down in memory. And so the jury is not going to hear them play their best. So they finally agreed to that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
And you know, Gilbert Kalish made that part of the requirements at Stony Brook. You can either play from memory or with your score. And how about you? Are you going to do that to your pupils now? You're going to pass on to them the thing that's going to help them most to play, to be happy about life. If they're going to worry about memory slips, they're not going to give their best.
Yeah, it is so true because all the worries are on memory and can function literally.
And even when you have perfect pitch, you can have that fear. So Richard Good now plays with all of his music. The Bach expert, what's her name?
Which Bach expert?
The latest one. What's her name? I forgot her name.
Simona, did you say? Simona, did you say?
No? She just played the whole series at the 92nd Street Y. Angela Hewitt.
Angela Hewitt, yes, right.
She has an iPad with a foot pedal. And she turns the page with her foot pedal. And yeah, she knows the whole life of Bach from memory. And yet she has that iPad in front of her. When she played the Goldberg variations from memory, it all depends. If you have any fear whatsoever, you put the music in front of you. Here's Clifford Curzon. I'm studying with him in London. Seymour, I've been told that my performance of the Beethoven Fourth is going to be televised. Would you turn for me?
Yeah.
There's no shame. There's no shame.
Oh, I have a story. I remember the first time I played the Schumann piano concerto, and
yes,
it's very tricky. It's because it's Schumann and it's constantly changing. And I was fighting with Mir because it's new, and then the conductor came to me and he said, you can use this. He pointed at my iPad and he said, use your iPad.
Oh, did you use it?
He said it's not about. Well, I ended up not using the iPad, but it was what a relief to hear him say that. It's not about.
And did you have a foot pedal?
No, I am always worried something might go wrong with the iPad on the stage. Well, I ended up spending 2 days, lots of time, and just going over everything the performance went well without the score. But the moment that he came to me and said, it's not about that. And
it's really true. It's really, but why don't you learn to use a foot pedal?
I will consider buying a foot pedal.
And it really works. I've heard a lot of performances, and it never fails.
Right, yeah.
So if it gives you comfort, look here, you don't even have to look at the score. Even the fact that it's there, in case you want to look, it's a great luxury.
Yeah, it's really true.
Look here, a friend of mine was living in Paris at one time, and George Damus was to play the first book of Preludes and Fugues one night, and he got sick. Guess who they got to replace him? Sviatoslav Richter. So my friend told me the stage lights went on and this gaunt figure came out clutching the Preludes and Fugues like this. He brought out the book and he put it on the music desk. He never opened it once. He played the whole book from memory. But there it was in case he needed it. See?
Yes.
Ну, это не так, наверное, все-таки он по-другому говорил тогда.
So all of this is good information for your pupils.
Ну, хотя, да.
This is so wonderful for everyone.
Ну, он также и икону ставил, по-моему, туда, и что-то делал.
We're passing on, like you do, we're passing on our knowledge, whatever we learn, to help them.
I think, was it Chopin who told his students that the finger should feel like it's
I
long?
said that.
That's you. Well, you are Chopin.
I said the
I get
thing.
you and Chopin confused a lot.
Well, I was Chopin, said that There's no reason to get confused.
Okay. Seymour, I have a question for you.
What?
I see here that you have what appears to be a severed human hand, and I just
Whoa.
wanted you to explain yourself.
Well, now look, this will tell you whose hand it is.
Uh-huh. It's your hand.
Is there any question?
It's clearly your hand.
Well, now don't be upset about it. This is Chopin's left hand.
Really?
I used to be Chopin
You did.
in another embodiment.
Were you anybody in between Chopin and Seymour?
No.
Or did it went straight from...
It's
Wow.
enough to be Chopin, I wanted to tell you.
Now, Chopin's...
By the way, I told this to a pupil, a new pupil.
Uh-huh.
He never came back. He probably thought I was a spook.
Yeah, well, you are a spook. It's interesting holding Chopin's hand. He was known for a very delicate approach to playing.
As a matter of fact, Clifford Curzon had the original cast of it. A millionairess in Paris gave it to him as a present. You know, he had a studio built onto his mansion in London. It's not a studio, it's a concert hall. And there was an illuminated cabinet. And I said, "What's that in the cabinet?" He took it out, put it in my lap. "Whose hand is that?" I said, "Oh, that's the hand of a woman." He said, "It's Chopin's left hand, much thinner than this." Chopin's piano, the Pleyel piano, the octave was equivalent to our seventh.
Really?
The keys were narrower. So, you know, when he did this, he didn't have to stretch so far.
So it's harder for us playing all these Chopins.
Of course it is.
Well, Chopin was a great teacher, and he taught a lot of amateur students. He's not like a conservatory professor
now,
today getting students ready for competition.
What do you mean in amateurs? His fee was so high that only the aristocracy could study with him. They weren't necessarily all, I mean, they were amateurs, they weren't professional pianists, but he would only teach gifted people. Do you know he gave 3 lessons a week to each pupil?
You think that's overkill?
No, I mean,
You would like to?
I would love that. I don't think lessons are nearly long enough. In Juilliard, you know, the lesson is 1 hour.
1 hour and then out the door.
Well, and everyone in Juilliard was a prodigy, practically.
I wasn't.
Well, you were fabulous. Your technique must have been finished, otherwise you wouldn't get in. They wouldn't work with you on technique, did they really?
Some, but technique is mostly something I had to discover for myself in a way. Of course, my teachers taught me so much, but I think for my body, maybe it's like this for other students, you have to figure it out for yourself at the end of the day.
I think if you speak to every pianist, they'll tell you the same thing. We all figure it out for ourselves. I fooled my teachers. I practiced so well that they thought I had a wonderful technique. I had terrible problems. So, and they never addressed them.
You mentioned one of your problems, and it reminded me of my own problem, and that's tense.
Oh, the shoulders, yeah.
And I love what you said in your choreography lesson, which is once you learn to drop your shoulders at the piano, you'll realize you can take this lesson into real life and start dropping your shoulders.
That's right.
In any activity.
While Mama is serving you soup, keep your shoulders down.
But it was all the way until my mid-20s, so we're talking 2 solid decades of piano lessons and piano practicing before I really started to let go.
And your teachers never commented?
They commented, but it wasn't enough of an emphasis. And I don't blame them because I had a lot of other problems. I had when I was a early teen, I had flat fingers, I was tense in my forearms.
Oh, so they had a big job to do.
They had a lot of work to do. But, you know, so it was one thing at a time for a while, but I think a lot of times teachers forget about it, the shoulders, and they're often teaching from the forearm down.
That's exactly right. But mostly from the fingers down.
Do you think?
They don't pay enough attention to the arms.
Well, it's somewhat mysterious, right? Like, of course, letting go here can allow a kind of weight transfer.
Well, the whole, look here. This motion, see the wrist undulating?
Yes.
That's one of the most important motions in all of piano playing. Because see, that's the greatest control with this long lever all the way from here. So now if I would hold you like this, and see go up and down like this, that's really injurious.
I think, was it Chopin who told his students that the finger should feel like...
I said that.
That's you. Well, you
I
feel like... I think, was it Chopin?
Up and down like this, that's really injurious.
I think, was it Chopin who told his students that the finger should feel like...
I said that.
That's you. Well, you
I said the
I get
thing.
you and Chopin confused a lot.
Well, I was Chopin said that. There's no reason to get confused.
Okay.
No, I said you have the feeling that the finger is this long. Okay.
And what message does that send the student to imagine that almost ridiculously long finger coming from the shoulder to the finger?
Well, Archimedes said, if I have it a lever long enough, I could lift the earth. So the longer the lever, the more control you